Good evening. We're the last one, and as you can see, I've been furiously scribbling notes because some of the things we wanted to speak about, or most of them, have been spoken about, right? And being the last one in the day and following up, some of those were fiery, provoking, some of those panel discussions. And we hope that we will bring in definitely some insights. I just have a quick analogy. So my grandmom used to tell me when you're coming in last, in those days when you had wood fire, she'd say, anybody having a bath, you always wait till the last, right? Because there's only that much water and you have to ration it. So the last one gets the most, right? And you can have a nice long warm bath. And when it's food, you go in first because you cannot deny a stomach full, right? So the last one who go in for the food probably will get the remnants. So I'm hoping this panel, we're going to be like that nice hot water bath that will spark some ideas and not like, morsels that we'll be scraping through, but I'm sure we have a lot of interesting things. And without much, further ado, and quick round of introductions from each of the panelists. Yeah?
Okay, typically they say ladies first, but I get the privilege to go here with this panel. Honestly, after the previous session, having our session is having a Theobroma cake and followed by a digestive cookie, literally. But we'll try our level best. My name is Saurabh Deshpande. I represent Shopperstop and I'm responsible for development and learning at Shopperstop. I am also responsible for the ESG initiatives. It's been an amazing journey with Shopperstop for past 7 years, prior to which I was a part of Dale Carnegie Associates. So half of my career has been into sales and the remaining half into HR. This is a very new, I would say, area or arena that I have been pulled into by choice and by the structure, and I'm just loving it. So it's really nice to be on this panel and listen to lovely ladies and the audience views. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So this is Farzeen Khan, and I represent Being Human Clothing. So I'm sure everybody knows here Being Human Clothing, Salman Khan brand. All of us? Some hands are not there. So that means people are not awake. Is everybody awake? Guys, please bear with us for another 30 minutes. Over to you.
Hi, it's always a pleasure to come back to anything to do with retail. So I currently work with the Welspun group. I lead culture, learning, diversity, equity, inclusion. And of course, Welspun also has a retail presence. We have our stores selling furnishing. And of course, I've spent 8 years with Future Group earlier. So it's really good to always come back, meet Amisha, so many of my old friends. I'm really happy to be part of the panel. And I think, like you said, we will be a beautiful, long, warm bath because I think we have some really good insights that will add, hopefully would add value and make it worth their while.
I'm sure. Thank you so much.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lisa Basumatari. I am with Westlife Food World, also known as Hardcastle Restaurants Private Limited, which is McDonald's India. So this is my first QSR stint, but have been in the space of HR for the last 16 years. I started my journey as a content writer, and ever since then, there's been multiple legs within HR that I have taken a role into. And inclusion is something which is really, really close to me. So when I got this opportunity, I was like, wow, this is something that I really love to. And it's been a day full of learnings and awareness, and let's see how we can contribute. So thank you, Sukanya.
Thank you. I thought I would also introduce myself. A quick bit about me. I think my journey with Titan, it's 22 years since I've been with Titan, has really been a testament of inclusion. I'm a microbiologist by qualification. I'm a designer by choice. And then I was an ethics practitioner. I was heading the ethics function for Titan. For about 6 years, I stumbled into it, and today I'm leading diversity and equity for the organization. So I'm not an HR professional, but I'd like to think of me being championing the cause of inclusion. Yeah, so I'll quickly jump into the questions. And panelists, we're not going by the order because I'm just going to change the order of the questions that we've kind of discussed before. So Mr. Nagesh had thrown up this question to all of us, saying how many of us in the room is going to go back and get this diversity goal with our CEOs to take this up. So this straight off to Bidisha, and then I'm going to invite any of the other panelists to pitch in. So how does one pitch diversity goals to business as an investment and not really a cost?
Great. And I've heard, of course, Nagesh speak for many years before this, and I know that must have been an impactful panel, even though I missed it. But I'd like to say what we're doing in Welspun, and considering it's a B2B and a B2C organization, we always start with the end in mind. Now, the end in mind, if you're a profitable business house, you want to make money. So by that logic, right, if you're not going to take into consideration half the population of India are women, if you're not going to have them included, then you're actually leaving out large part of the population to come into business and contribute. So the way we've crafted the DEI strategy, and we have a DEI scorecard actually for every CEO, we looked at numbers holistically. And honestly, sometimes I've learned by trial and error, sometimes it's great to start with initiatives, but it's greater if you have clarity of goals and numbers. So we actually looked at every business because our businesses are pretty diametrically opposite. Some are steel, pipes, retail, flooring, etc. Right? Now, every business has their own challenge. Some of them are customer facing, some of them are not customer facing. So one needed to sit down and look at the numbers. What is the data telling you? So if you want to build a strong case for DEI, you have to talk business, you have to talk data, and you have to convince the CEO that this is not really an HR prerogative at all. It is a business prerogative because he is or she is missing out if they are not including half the population. If all the boardroom meetings are with only men, or are not having women represented there, or not having people from different backgrounds, whether it's sexual orientation or disability, we're actually losing out on different viewpoints, and thereby innovation slows down. If innovation slows down, you don't come up with innovative product and solutions, and that leads to poor customer service and centricity, and you don't make enough money. So what we've done is that we looked at all our numbers. We also created something called a DEI scorecard, which actually sits on the KPI of every MD. So one of our, you would know, Dipali Goenka is one of the MDs, and she obviously leads from the front. So she's one of our sponsors. We have very other MDs as well in the business. So every MD gets a scorecard, and you get an actionable in terms of whether it's the representation of gender, people with disabilities in every segment of your business. You get to choose a target that you'd like to do. And one must acknowledge that it's not easy. It's not easy to do this. So we say that it's a journey. So we have a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 approach, year 1, year 2, year 3. We let them choose targets. We measure things like how many women are getting promoted, what is the kind of role women are playing? What is the aging of the person holding the role? How many out of all the women in the team are in support functions? How many are business decision leaders? What is the pay parity? What is the percentage of senior women leading businesses? Because typically we've seen in our organization, there's a lot of people entering the organization, start level, mid-level, and then the number drops. So then what is each business MD going to do about it, right? So we've created a scorecard, which is absolutely with numbers and metrics. There is a GAM, where there is a governance and accountability matrix, and there are people responsible, and every quarter we have a review, which is to discuss how we are doing on that goal. So I don't discuss it, I just sort of sit and tell the MD that, let me tell you what can we do to make you successful, but this is what you really need to drive. So we also have a DEI council and a talent board, which also reviews all of this. So what I initially, when I came into the organization, it's been almost 5 years, struggled with to say that, hey, how does this discussion, it's not a separate agenda that one needs to do. It has to be part of your business plan, because you're not going to be otherwise being able to represent half the population. So anything that measures gets measured, gets done. So if you want to drive DI in the true sense, get a scorecard, put it in people's KPIs, and let the business and MDs run it.
Great. Thank you. I think that's definitely reiteration of, a lot of panelists who were also saying this, right? I think Mr. Matthew from Landmark also said about, something about data and metrics and how leaders respond to numbers. So thank you so much, Bidisha. Yeah.
Yeah, if I may. A lot of the tangible measures have been spoken about during the course of the day, so I really second that. It's very important to have that. I also believe there's intangible measures equally which are important. I remember we had Mr. Sonam Wangchuk address us during one of the leadership talk, and he's a Rolex Award winner, known as the face of innovation of India. And he happened to mention that it's not the people who elect the politicians. Most of the politicians do things which will make people elect them. Yeah, which means it's the people who actually bring about that pressure, a subtle pressure on the leader to make things happen. So let's look at a CEO. A CEO is responsible at a board level, is responsible at an employee level, responsible at a customer level. So anything which is accepted, celebrated by employees, celebrated by customers, is something which will make the CEO think, right? And we believe very strongly in terms of celebration. So whether it's a pride celebration, whether it's celebrating Women's Day, for that matter, we celebrate Men's Day also on 19th that we had. We celebrated on 17th. So when you do that and when you see a lot of your employees are applauding that, encouraging that and asking for more, naturally that these are the intangible measures also. Testimonials. Testimonials by not only the employees, but their families talking about it, peer groups talking about it. And when someone looks it from an external viewpoint and says, good work, your organization doing a lot of stuff, I think that subtle pressure, that intangible measure is also equally important.
Thank you. Thank you, Saurabh. I will move to the next question because I'm hoping everybody's making a quick note of things that this panel is bringing on to the table, and also I'm keeping an eye on the clock that's ticking away. I'll probably pose this to Farzeen and then followed by Lisa. We've all heard that sensitization and training is so important, right? And as maybe L&D or if it's led by the HR teams, really, what is the challenge that we have? One of the biggest challenges that I face is attendance. बोल तो लेते हैं कि sensitization होना है, awareness create करना है, but if people don't turn up, whom you're going to create awareness to? So what have you all done in your organization to really get the eyeballs, to really get people to come in?
So a couple of things. To begin with, it's, I think, the vision of the MD and the CEO, yeah, and the ethos which the brand brings onto the table. So being human as a brand basically straddles the business circle and the conscious circle together. When we say that there are brands in the apparel industry which actually started with the business and then moved on to the conscious circle, we have actually started with conscious predominantly, but keeping business in mind, which means that we are very clear in terms of the top line and the bottom line which we need to achieve, but simultaneously what else do we contribute to and how do we make difference in the lives of the people. As basic as you said, Sukanya, in terms of attendance, I'm saying, inclusion and diversity is ingrained in the people of being human, whether it is the manager at the store or whether it is somebody working at the back end. Of course, being human has a journey to, which it has traversed, but the last 2 years, we've seen more than double-digit growth in terms of the, women folks joining us. And if I have to actually count down on the percentage, we've reached to around 25%. In terms of, the actual training and sensitivity lessons which we give to people is we actually evaluate them at the time of the interview. Whether it's a store manager or whether it is, somebody who is going to run the store operations or somebody who is a business development person. Because the values what we preach is something which we actually practice. So when we say that, we have values like love, care, share, joy, hope, help. So somebody, we believe that integrity, getting the goal done, running for the goal, performance, meritocracy is by default in an individual. So when we actually look at hiring people, we look at that segment as well. And that's what has given us, that beautiful numbers which we talk about. And, that's the reason when we were talking about it during one of the panels, I heard that, how do we convince the CEO to, have a chat on having inclusion agenda? But, I would like to say the other way is that, every quarter my target gets increased. So, and I've been able to do that. I think that's because of the team and the, culture which we build upon. That's what is from my side.
Fabulous. Thank you. Would you like to go, Lisa?
Yeah, sure. So thank you for that, Farzeen. So it really rang a bell in my head when you spoke about how everything that you do in being human is ingrained in values, and that is what it is for us as well in McDonald's. So when you were talking about, I was just thinking, so agenda of inclusion is not only so much a strategy for us, neither is it that we are doing it, that it is because it's the right thing to do as McDonald's, as an organization. But it flows right from the owners of the organization. So it's Smita and Amit Jatia, who heads McDonald's West and South. We are West and South predominant. So simple things like when any new joinee who joins our organization has to by default undergo a store stint. So when I joined and I was told that you need to actually go to the store and assemble a burger and make a coffee, I was like, wow, आज तक चपाती बनाना आता है, burger कभी बनाया नहीं है life में. That still turned out well. Coffee was pathetic, and I told the team that please don't serve it to the customer. So that's how we do. It's ingrained, and while it's at my level, right? Tomorrow, if I have a CFO joining in the organization, it's also our CFO who will actually go to the stores, do the entire day part, the night shift, and live what our employees live in the store. So that's one part of it. Other part of it is we believe internally very strongly that if we have to communicate, we will communicate and over communicate if need be. And that is also to seep in the mindset of bringing in healthy conversations, and it also starts with the trainings that we do. So as an organization, we're a very training heavy organization, especially in our front end. So we are about 11,000 plus employees in the organization, and anything and everything that we start or do in the organization weaves with the mindset of training, which is how we are able to deliver feel good moments, which is also a brand promise.
So again, when you're saying training, right?
Yeah.
This programmatic approach of saying that I will put this as part of something that is, non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Somebody who comes in as an induction. I mean, I like the fact that a CFO will go and make burger in your stores,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
It's a fabulous thing. That's something I'm taking away. We're going to get everybody to do a store stint. Yeah. One of the things that in Titan that we did struggle with, right? I mean, when I took on this, we said, okay, now DEI is going to demand 3 hours of time from managers to come and attend unconscious bias workshops. And then there's somebody else who's asking them for some other time. And then when I was looking at the calendar, I said, as a manager, I don't know how many hours in a month that you're demanding of me. And it's a big load because you'd like to start from the top, and that's a philosophy. So one of the other things that we are now doing is we're kind of embedding really key takeaways, saying, DEI, KRA to hai hamara, we have to do all of this, but then I'd like to embed it in maybe a manager training, in a product training, in various other trainings, and which demands time from people to come and sit down there. And there are different ways, and I think one of the things that you said is so interesting, that you do infuse lessons of inclusion in so many different ways. It doesn't have to be one way of doing it, addressing this one topic that we want to talk about. Yeah, thank you so much for that. I will move on to the next question saying, again, Lisa, I'd like to get back to you. Innovative practices in retail businesses that we've adopted, which foster diversity in the workplace.
Great. And I was itching to talk about
Yes.
it. So thank you for asking me that, because there's zillions of things that we're doing, but I'll talk about two specific things. So the first one is called Fempower. It germinated from the terminology of female and power, not empowerment so much to say, but female power. Now, what is Fempower? So this started, we came up with this thought sometime in the month of March this year. We were actually in Thailand celebrating our 2,500 crores that we did in the last year. And then suddenly we are like, so we have this market concept. We have 8 markets in McDonald's, which is region specific across West and South. And then we realized that across all the 8 market managers that we have only one female representative. Now, Smita calls us and tells us, how is this possible? Why don't we have more women? And it started there. And then while we said, okay, let's go back to the drawing board, we also saw a lot of data and numbers, but we consciously took a call that we will not create another leadership program or a program which builds leaders out of making a other gender representation go high, which is the women. So we said that, okay, what do we do about it? So we created a community. Fempower is nothing but a community which revolves around well-being support. Why? Because we realized that all our women in the stores and also in a corporate office, which will come, we will actually target closing sometime in the next year. The one thing that they were lacking is, where do we go and share our experiences and challenges? Now, we have done multiple sessions, monthly sessions, where it's nothing but we have a group of people who are there only to listen, because we realize that in this era of Facebook, social media and WhatsApp, etc. I mean, imagine people also wishing happy birthdays HBD, right? So we said that, okay, let us create listening platforms. But that is one. Second, it also started with self-mastery. How do we go back and help these restaurant leaders, women leaders, to look inwards? We began with that. What happened as a result of that? We just started, but because of this, while they've had the opportunity to share and also care amongst each other, they could actually retain more women crew in the stores that we have as one of the, and that was not even in our agenda, it just came very organically. That's one initiative that we are doing, and we have around 79, 80 women leaders who are actually going through that community practice. The second is 3 years back, we actually started with this initiative called Equal. Now, Equal is nothing but an inclusion initiative where we realized that what about our people and customers, consumers who are differently abled. So whenever we have a burger, we always tend to use both our hands because you may want to peel off the wrapper. So we created a packaging which actually helps a person with maybe half a limb to actually hold the burger and then eat it well, even while driving or even while traveling somewhere. This year, what we have done as a part of that initiative extension, if any one of you have our Mac delivery app, if not, please download it and see it. We've actually created a space where for people or consumers who are colorblind, they can actually switch the button and look at the color of the burger or the beverage and the dessert and actually order. So that's the extension of the Equal initiative this year. Yeah, these are the two things that I should talk
digital accessibility. Yeah, it's fabulous. Thank you so much.
Can I add something?
Yeah, please.
Being human is actually what we say is a clothing line with a heart. And when we say that, from a consumer perspective, we've kind of launched, so predominantly we are a men's casual wear brand, right? We do have women's wear as well. So all the women folks here, please go and try the outfits which are there at the store. But the point which I want to bring onto the table is that we have a gender neutral, product line as well, which we call it Blur. And irrespective of the gender, size, people can go shop and, feel that they actually are a part of the brand, which gives them that opportunity to wear and flaunt. That's just, I think, something which was there, and we kind of launched it. Every season we give it a new flavor and a new, a design element. But if I have to just, add some more point on one of the policy questions which I heard one of the panelists talking about, is that how do you make the front end team inclusive along with the back end team? And basic policy changes, have really made wonders for us, and that's actually helped us be a great place to work certified organization, is that I can say almost 90% or maybe 95% of retail conglomerates who are here have different policies for front end and back end, starting from the leave policy. Being human gives that equal to all the workers there, whether you're an intern or whether you're a front end person or you're a back end person, and all the leaves for that matter. So which has actually made a difference. So I'm saying small things somewhere does create a bang, and it works well for us.
Thank you. Saurabh, would you like to?
Yeah, I think very, very inspiring practices. And I think when I joined Shopper Stop, what inspired me also was the word care, customer care associate. I'm a very proud customer care associate, and so is every employee. Thanks to that practice put by Mr. B.S. Nagesh, when people were reluctant to even join retail, and he and his team actually went to the tier 2, tier 3 cities, got the parents to see the store, that this is how we work. And we continue that practice. So whenever a new person joins, he or she has the store stand. So number of practice that we all replicate. I think what stands out for me is we do have a internal cohort that we have created, a group called We Volunteer, and number of practices, because we feel that inclusion comes only when you include people internally. Second, it's only when you have a acceptance, I would say inclusion happens only when you accept diversity. So how do you show that acceptance? That happens when you do practice internally. So we have a day where we, our CXOs included, serve our housekeeping guys. We call their families also. Now, I believe inclusion does not remain only to women or LGBTQ or certain communities. If we are saying that, and three of our values, growth, respect, and inclusivity, if we don't demonstrate it, then how is the world going to see that? So that's one practice that stands out for me. Second is gender assignment, which my colleague Harini spoke about. So having a policy in one place is different, but are people availing that policy is also, that needs to be tracked. And we have people who have actually not only availed that policy, but this person actually came in the town hall and shared gratitude about it. So that's second. The third is having days where you have an entire a theme around makeup which celebrates pride. And that includes customers also. So the moment customers see that I'm shopping at a destination which actually practices my values, that's where the customer is wanting to come back again and again. And that, I believe, makes a lot of business sense. These are the three things which, apart from what we spoke, but very, very inspiring practice. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to share one thing that, kind of really got me thinking. So we were interviewing Anubhuti Banerjee. She's Tata Steel. She transitioned while she was with Tata Steel, and Tata Steel's gender neutral policy also came into being because of Anubhuti. She also leads their wings, which is, the pride arm of Tata Steel. And one of the things that she shared with me was, the business opportunity, right? And that exists. So when we're saying of innovative practices, until we have diversity in our teams, we would not really know how to, how do we measure this innovation that is happening within the organization as we're catering to our businesses. So Anubhuti said, I've transitioned into a woman, but my foot size remains the same. I have a feet size which is which is structured for a man's foot, but I would like to wear stilettos. So who's designing for me? So until you have a trans person on your team, you're losing a business opportunity. Yeah. So it's just fabulous, the kind of things that you discover on this road to inclusion and diversity. But yes, if you're open to it, I think we are opening doors, and it's making business sense all the way. I think I have another 15 minutes. Maybe just one last question. Bidisha, if, we already spoke about, how measuring the success of inclusivity initiatives. And I think Saurabh also briefly mentioned saying uptake of policies. Would you want to speak about that at Welspun in terms of effective ways to measure the success of inclusivity initiatives in your organization?
Considering, like we said, we have a scorecard, and of course, like you were mentioning earlier in one of your inputs, we also conduct audits, right? So, and also one of the ways to do this effectively is to not do it at just one stage, but try and see at the employee life cycle, right? From the time that you're onboarding her till her training and employee experience and exit, where she is actually experiencing or not experiencing inclusivity. So to give you some examples, we actually conduct our exit interviews have specific questions which actually check whether you felt belonged, were you discriminated in some way, was there any bias. We also have an initiative that we call affinity circles, wherein we actually get women. We do a lot of work around DEI with women this year. That's the target. So we have something called Women of Welspun. So in that, we conduct these affinity circles, whether they are for shop floor workers, with senior women, and we actually try and gather data and see whatever initiatives you're taking, are they experiencing that change, right? And we also have a listening tool in which employees can give sort of feedback, score some of the initiatives, and that becomes again a measure of our practices. But I think one of the things that we've realized is that if the moment you take an DEI initiative and say, okay, now we're going to drive this, it has to be embedded, for example, in your selection process through your JDs. Are your JDs gender neutral? The way you are handling and taking interviews, are you asking, are you being inclusive in the way you question? Like, we have very strict policies and, codes saying that you cannot really ask people about marital status or when they intend to marry or which part of India are you in, so that there is some sort of an affinity bias, right? So I've seen that happen so much because being a Bong, if I'm ever meeting somebody who's a Bengali, they'll start rattling in Bong, right? So things like that. So are you doing all of that? In your employee experience journey, we have something called radio. We actually have an internal organization radio. We have an RJ. And we communicate and over-communicate. So we have tied up with a partner where we actually play this radio in our buses, in our stores, and our offices. And there's a new show that gets released every Friday. So we communicate inclusivity stories every Friday about, what's happening. And we also celebrate allies. So men and women who've been great allies to women and people with disabilities. How have they been allies to them, right? And also, we also work with a lot of men and women who manage women on how do you become an ally, So when there's a woman who's trying to make her point and she gets cut or nobody listens, what do you do as an ally, So as an ally, you step in and say, I think Bidisha was trying to say something. Let's hear her out. So these small things, right? So we've actually tried to look at inclusivity in the employee life all the stages of an employee's life cycle. And that's how the scorecard is also actually based on the employee life cycle. So every initiative that we do has to reflect what are some of the changes that you've brought in on your business level, on your people level, and on your process level?
Great. Thank you so much. So there definitely, I mean, I think this is a nice hot water bath. There are a lot of things that we've kind of definitely sparked. And if I may just summarize it quickly, definitely metrics, some data in the way we kind of pitch this, and ownership, because this is not an HR initiative, right? This is not something that only HR runs as a program. It's something for everybody in the organization, definitely for the leaders. The other bit is, what I really liked is about listening posts. You just have to listen and then see what we can do to either change it or to kind of make it better if things are going well. And the other bit that you spoke about is bring in innovation, do things that are different. So in a lot of ways, I think simply put, I think inclusion as a journey is about getting comfortable with discomfort. And when you get past that, there are, you just keep uncovering more things that you're probably uncomfortable with, and eventually we find a way around it if we are open to this. So with this, I think I'd like to close this session. Thank you to all the panelists, and thank you to the audience. We were really afraid. We'd seen a lot of empty spots, but all of you are hanging on to your seats. Thank you so much for being here. And I think we'd like to close. I don't know if we should take questions. They're just, yes. Yes, of course.
As you all were talking, suddenly a question of inclusion has come up. Okay, and I want to ask, because I think fabulous panel, how do you all manage inclusion in generations that are working together? There is a baby boomer, there is a millennial and a Gen Z and a Gen A in the same organization.
Can I? So I again remember the first day when I came to Shoppers Stop. It was in Eureka Towers. And at the reception, so there's this person who's almost about 45, 50, talking to somebody who was just about 23, 24. And I thought maybe it's a vendor partner who's talking, or maybe a senior, junior, only to get to know later that they both were colleagues working the same function. And I think what has worked is the marriage of experience and innovation. People who come across generation, they bring in a lot of experience, while people who are today the so-called Z generation, millennials, all of them, they bring in a lot of exposure. So when experience and exposure work together, that works. Now, the question is, how do you make it happen? And that requires a cross-cultural sensitization on both the ends, wherein, for example, when a PWSA joins, a person with special abilities, not only people around him or her are trained on the sign language, but even that person is also trained on how do you interact with customer, how do you communicate that you don't have. There's one sort of communication. The more celebrations we have together, the more acceptance is another thing that I have seen. So right from sitting together at a dining table, right from that to maybe having activities or experiences together, that those blurred lines actually diminish. And third, open dialogue is very, very essential. So the more opportunities you give to have open dialogue, right from whether it's a town hall or whether it's an informal talk, the more informal platforms you create, it helps to reduce those blurs. I think it's just a perception that needs to go out.
And Nagesh, I just also like to point out, because, we experience this. One, of course, is this age, diversity between ages. And we've introduced something called reverse mentoring for some of the CEOs, where we're actually having, much younger people work with them. The other thing that we also notice is, ethnic. So, for example, we have a plant based in a remote location in Anjar, right, where English is really not the first language. People speak in Gujarati and Hindi. So it used to exist a bias between when, Mumbai office and Gujarat office. So that's one. Then there is between India office and US and UK office. So there's a lot of this diversity also that we're working, and we acknowledge that, because the minute you hear that, okay, somebody's from Anjar and there are IJPs that were coming up, right, and people from Anjar were applying, sometimes there were biases creeping in, usko English nahi aayega. वो communicate नहीं कर पाएगा, वो काम अच्छा करता है लेकिन senior position में. So those are things that we acknowledge, and it exists very much in India, because unless you are heavily able to speak English, sometimes that becomes a barrier. So we do work on those elements. And similarly, some of the communication mailers we used to send out, which used to have Hindi, English, were completely not understood by our colleagues in the US and UK office. So we acknowledge that, and now we sort of do communication that is well understood by all segments of people within the organization.
If I may just share something. So Titan, we are, we are at the doors of, we've had people who've been here for 30, 32 years, right? And that generation is moving out, and now we're suddenly faced with a huge influx of the younger generation coming in. And since a lot of us are tenured in the organization, there's a certain comfort, there's a certain familiarity in the way we speak. And there is a tendency for the senior persons to take under their wings as, she's like my daughter, he's like my son, they're like my brother. So the first thing that we are facing is you have to introduce this whole concept of professionalism. We don't need people to be fathers, mothers, and brothers and sisters here. Yes, you need to be professional. That's on one side. The other side is for the younger generation who are joining our factories from the IITs, and they would like to work under somebody else who's an IIT. But here you have somebody who spent 32 years in manufacturing, who's an expert, right? And he's grown the ranks, or she's grown the ranks. We have lesser of she's, but yeah, more, he's grown the ranks. And you have to now tell them what is this value this person is bringing to the table. Because what you've learned in college, maybe at the IIT, is not something that is immediately going to translate when you're at the assembly line. Yeah. So it's a lot of dialogue that goes up and down. It's a lot of patience, and we're really there. I mean, we are spending a lot of energy and time to kind of figure out how to talk these different languages and get everybody to understand something that should be common across. So it's not easy to crack, but yeah, we're trying to do that.